The cold metal walls of Research Station Helios 9 hummed with the usual background noise of machines. Dr. Jiwoo Kim stood alone in her lab, staring at the readings that made no sense. For the third night in a row, her equipment had detected something impossible. "Hey, you're still here?" Technician Dong Hyun poked his head through the doorway, coffee in hand. "It's almost midnight station time." Jiwoo barely looked up from her console. "Come look at this," she said, waving him over. "The energy signature keeps appearing, but it doesn't match anything in our database." Dong Hyun set his coffee down and leaned over her shoulder. His eyes widened as he studied the pulsing waveform on the screen. "That can't be right. Run the calibration again." "Done it 7 times, Jiwoo said, pushing her dark hair back from her face. "Whatever this is, it's real." The discovery had started 3 days earlier when one of their deep space probes malfunctioned near the asteroid belt. Instead of failing completely, it sent back readings that defied the laws of physics. Energy patterns that seemed to exist in a space between normal dimensions, flickering in and out of conventional reality. Jiwoo had named it Aether after ancient Earth myths, an invisible substance once thought to fill the universe. The name felt right for something that seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at once. "The council representatives arrive tomorrow," Dong Hyun reminded her. "Are you going to tell them?" Jiwoo nodded slowly. The Galactic Council, a coalition of 12 advanced alien species, had guided humanity since first contact 20 years ago. They controlled faster-than-light travel, supervised Earth's development, and generally treated humans like clever children who needed supervision. "They'll probably say we made a mistake," she said, saving another copy of her findings. "You know how they are." The next morning, Jiwoo stood nervously before 3 council representatives in the station's conference room. The Moralian delegate, tall and insect-like, examined her data with compound eyes that reflected the screen's blue light. Beside him, the Vex representative, a gelatinous being who communicated through colored patterns across its surface, pulsed with what looked like amusement. "Dr. Kim," the third alien said in perfect unaccented English. The Taraxi were humanoid enough to make eye contact comfortable, though their silvery skin and lack of external ears marked them as definitely not human. "These readings suggest energy existing outside normal spacetime. This is impossible according to established physics." "With respect, Ambassador Krell, my equipment registered it consistently," Jiwoo replied, trying to keep the frustration from her voice. "Something is there. Human instruments are—" The Moralian paused, mandibles clicking as he searched for a diplomatic word. "Primitive. What you've detected is likely background radiation or equipment malfunction." "I've accounted for those possibilities," Jiwoo began. "The Council appreciates your enthusiasm," Krell interrupted smoothly. "Your species' curiosity is admirable, but perhaps focus on projects more suited to your current technological level." After they left, Jiwoo stood alone in the conference room, face burning with humiliation and anger. Her personal tablet pinged with a message from her research partner, Yoonha. "Well, how did they take it?" "Exactly how you'd expect," Jiwoo typed back. "They patted me on the head and told me to play with simpler toys." Later that evening, she gathered her small team in the lab. Besides Dong Hyun and Yoonha, there was Min Jae, the quantum physics specialist, and Kyung Soon, their systems engineer, the Rao. "Council doesn't believe us," Jiwoo said without preamble, "but I know what I saw, what we all saw." "So what now?" Kyung Soon asked, arms crossed. "They control our funding." Jiwoo pulled up a holographic display of the solar system. "We continue in secret. I've been thinking, what if the aliens missed something? They've had advanced tech for thousands of years, but sometimes when you're too far ahead, you stop looking for alternatives. You think they don't know about the Aether?" Min-jae looked skeptical. "I think they might have categorized it as useless long ago, or maybe they can't detect it the way we can," Jiwoo replied. "Either way, there's something here they're missing." She pulled up a new screen showing the original probe readings. "Look at how the energy patterns changed when the probe's human operator adjusted the settings manually. It's almost like it was responding to human input," Yoonha finished, eyes widening. "Exactly." Jiwoo nodded. What if this ether energy somehow interacts specifically with human consciousness? It would explain why the council dismissed it so quickly, if it doesn't respond to them the same way. The team stayed up all night, reconfiguring equipment and designing new tests. As dawn broke over the curved horizon of the station's viewport, they made their second breakthrough. Proof that human brainwave patterns could influence the mysterious energy field in ways that shouldn't be possible. We need to be careful who we tell about this, Jiwoo said as they watched the ether respond to Donghyun's directed thoughts, forming patterns that mirrored his brain activity. If I'm right, we've found something revolutionary, something the advanced species overlooked because it wasn't useful to them. None of them could have known then how their discovery would save humanity only months later, when the Varangian warships appeared in Earth's orbit, demanding submission, or how the energy field they'd named after an ancient myth would reshape humanity's place among the stars. But as Jiwoo watched the impossible energy dance across her screen, following the patterns of human thought, she felt a shiver of something between fear and excitement. They had stumbled onto something powerful, something that might change everything. The morning the Varangian ships appeared, most people thought they were clouds at first, strange, dark clouds that didn't move with the wind. It wasn't until they blocked out the sun over major cities that panic began to spread. Taeho Park was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alert blared across his phone. As Earth's Assistant Director of Interstellar Relations, he'd been preparing for first contact scenarios for years, but not like this. Not with ships larger than mountains hovering silently over population centers. Get to the UN headquarters. Immediately, his boss's voice crackled through the phone. They're demanding to speak with Earth's leaders. 2 hours later, Taeho stood in a hastily assembled meeting room with 20 government officials from around the world. The air felt thick with tension as they waited for the aliens to arrive. What do we know about them? Whispered the French representative. Nothing, Taeho replied. They're not part of the Galactic Council. No council species has ships that large. The door slid open, and 3 figures entered. Taeho had met several alien species before, but the Varangians made his skin crawl. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with gray-blue skin stretched tight over angular frames. Their 4 eyes, too large, too small, blinked independently of each other. They wore what appeared to be living armor that shifted and adjusted with their movements. I am Supreme Commander Vornak, the central figure announced without any greeting. Its voice sounded like stones grinding together. The Varangian Empire claims the system now. The UN Secretary General stepped forward. We welcome peaceful contact, but Earth is not available for claiming. We are a sovereign world. All 4 of the aliens' eyes blinked at once, and Taeho realized it was their version of laughter. Amusing. Your planet has resources we require. Your technology is primitive. Your options are submission or extinction. Thousands of civilizations before you have made the wise choice. Taeho felt his heart pounding. This wasn't diplomacy. It was an ultimatum. The negotiations, if they could be called that, continued for hours. The Varangians outlined their demands. Earth would surrender control of its mineral resources, provide labor forces, and accept Varangian rule. In exchange, they would not immediately eradicate human civilization. During a brief recess, Taeho received an urgent call from Dr. Jiwoo Kim at Helios 9. Taeho, listen carefully, she said, her voice low and hurried. The ether research. We've made a breakthrough. The energy responds to human thought patterns even more strongly than we realized. We've built a prototype device that can… Jiwoo, we're in the middle of first contact with a hostile species, he interrupted. Can this wait? No. That's exactly why I'm calling. The ether might help us. We need to show you what it can do. When the meeting reconvened, Jiwoo's colleague Yoonha had arrived, clutching a small metal device about the size of a shoebox. She had somehow convinced security to let her in by mentioning Taeho's name. This is highly irregular, the Secretary General muttered as Taeho explained the situation. Sir, with respect, the Varangians are going to destroy us regardless of what we agree to today. Taeho whispered back. Let's at least see what our scientists have found. The lead Varangian, Vornak, turned all 4 eyes toward Yoonha when she entered. Another human delegate? Your species wastes time. Not a delegate, Yunha said, surprisingly calm in the face of the towering alien. A scientist. I've brought something I think you should see. She placed the device on the conference table. It looked unimpressive, just a metal box with a small control panel. What is this primitive technology supposed to be? Vornak asked, voice dripping with disdain. Something you've overlooked, Yunha replied. She pressed a sequence on the panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the air around the device seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The ripples expanded outward in concentric circles. The effect on the Varangians was immediate and shocking. All three aliens staggered backward, their armor suddenly writhing as if in pain. Vornak's four eyes widened in what looked like alarm or pain. "Turn it off," barked the Secretary General, but Tae-ho held up his hand. "Wait," he said, watching the aliens closely. They weren't being harmed. They were reacting to something they could see that the humans couldn't. Vornak recovered first, straightening to his full height. "What is this?" he demanded, but his tone had changed. The smug superiority was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like, could it be, fear. "We call it Aether technology," Tae-ho improvised quickly, nodding to Yunha to keep the device running. "It's unique to Earth, to humans specifically." "Impossible," hissed one of the other Varangians. "The etheric dimension is theoretical. Only, no species has successfully silence." Vornak cut him off, but too late. Tae-ho and Yunha exchanged a quick glance. So the Varangians knew about the ether but believed it couldn't be harnessed. This changed everything. "Perhaps," Tae-ho said carefully, "we should discuss different terms for our relationship. It seems humans have developed abilities that surprise you." The meeting adjourned soon after, with the Varangians demanding to examine the device, a request that was politely but firmly denied. As they left, Tae-ho noticed how Vornak kept all four eyes fixed on the small metal box, as if it might attack him. Later, in a secure room deep under the UN building, Yunha explained what had happened. The device creates small distortions in reality, tiny bridges between our dimension and the ether. To us, it just looks like air ripples, but the Varangians can see it differently. Based on their reaction, it terrifies them. "But why?" asked the Secretary General. "We think," Yunha said slowly, "that the ether responds specifically to human consciousness. Something about our brain patterns allows us to manipulate it instinctively. The Varangians might understand it exists, but can't control it the way we can." Tae-ho looked out the window at the massive Varangian ship still hovering over the city. "Will this be enough to stop them?" "No," Yunha admitted. "This was just a prototype, but Jiwoo and the team are working on larger applications. We need time." "Then time is what will get you," Tae-ho said, turning back to the room. "We just saw something I never expected to see in these aliens. Uncertainty. For the first time, in what might be centuries, they're facing something they don't understand." As night fell over the city, the Varangian ships remained in position, but they launched no attacks. On screens worldwide, people watched and waited, not knowing that humanity's survival now depended on mastering an energy that shouldn't exist. Guided by a small team of scientists working frantically against time, the underground lab beneath Seoul's old subway system buzzed with activity. What had started as Dr. Jiwoo Kim's small research team had grown into a global operation in just 3 weeks. Scientists from every continent worked in shifts around the clock, expanding on Jiwoo's original ether discoveries, while Varangian ships loomed overhead, a constant reminder of what was at stake. "We're running out of time," Jiwoo said, rubbing her tired eyes as she spoke to Sung-Min Lee, the newly appointed director of Earth's Defense Initiative. "The Varangians are getting impatient with the diplomatic delays." Sung-Min nodded grimly. A former military strategist with kind eyes that contrasted with his stern expression, he had been tracking the alien fleet's movements. "They've positioned 5 more warships at strategic points around the planet. Our satellites show they're powering up weapon systems. On the main display screen, a 3D model of the Aether device rotated slowly. Unlike the small prototype Yunha had shown the aliens, this version was the size of a car, with dozens of intricate components. The good news, Jiwoo continued, gesturing to the model, is that we've figured out why humans can interact with the Aether when other species can't. She pulled up a series of brain scans on a side screen. See this neural pattern? It's unique to humans. Something about the way our consciousness formed on Earth lets us perceive and manipulate this energy dimension. Can you make it work fast enough? Sungmin asked, the weight of billions of lives evident in his voice. Before Jiwoo could answer, the lab's emergency alarm blared. A young technician ran in, face pale. They're moving. The Varangian ships have broken formation. On the main screen, satellite imagery showed the massive alien vessels positioning themselves over major cities worldwide. An incoming transmission flashed on the display. Supreme Commander Vornak's face filled the screen. All four eyes narrowed. Humans, your delays test our patience. You have hidden technology from us. This deception ends now. Surrender the Aether, devices, or face immediate consequences. The screen went black. They must have detected our testing, Jiwoo said, already moving toward the prototype. Sungmin, we need more time. We don't have it, he replied, already on his secure phone. Defense forces worldwide are being activated, but conventional weapons will be useless against their ships. In the chaos that followed, something unexpected happened. As technicians rushed to finish the Aether device's calibration, one of the younger researchers, Haewon, slipped into the testing chamber alone. Haewon, get out of there! Jiwoo shouted through the intercom. The device isn't stable yet. But Haewon stood calmly next to the machine, placing her hand on its surface. I've been studying the neural patterns, she said. I think I can make it work. Before anyone could stop her, she closed her eyes. The Aether device hummed to life, its core glowing with strange blue-green light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Through the observation window, they watched in amazement as the air around Haewon rippled like water. But this was different from the small, contained effect of the prototype. The ripples expanded outward, passing through walls as if they weren't there. What's happening? Sungmin demanded as alarms blared throughout the facility. Jiwoo stared at the readings flooding her screen. She's somehow amplifying the connection. The Aether field is expanding across the entire city. Above, ground witnesses would later describe seeing Seoul transformed. The air shimmered with faint blue light that made buildings look slightly out of phase with reality. When the first Varangian attack came, energy beams designed to cripple Earth's power infrastructure, something impossible happened. The beams simply vanished 100 meters from their targets, absorbed into the shimmering air. In the lab, Haewon opened her eyes, which now glowed with the same blue-green light as the device. I can feel it, she whispered, her voice somehow carrying clearly through the speakers. The Aether isn't just energy, it's responsive, alive almost, and it recognizes us. What do you mean? Jiwoo asked, approaching the chamber cautiously. It's like... Haewon struggled to find the words. Like it's been waiting for us to notice it, to remember it. Over the next few hours, as the Varangians launched their full-scale invasion, similar scenes played out in labs worldwide. The Aether devices, still experimental, still dangerous, were activated in desperate attempts to shield cities from destruction. What no one expected was how human consciousness amplified the effect. People with no scientific training found themselves able to sense the Aether once it was activated nearby. Some, like Haewon, displayed remarkable abilities to direct it, creating shields that the Varangian weapons couldn't penetrate. In Tokyo, a grade school teacher named Kenji found he could extend an Aether field around his entire school, protecting hundreds of children from falling debris. In Lagos, a bus driver named Adebayo discovered he could make alien technology malfunction just by concentrating. Sungmin stood in the Seoul Command Center, watching live feeds from around the world. It's spreading, he said, wonder in his voice. Faster than we ever anticipated. It's not just spreading, Jiwoo replied, showing him new data streaming in. It's evolving with each human who connects to it. Look at these patterns. People are instinctively finding new ways to use it. By nightfall, the first Varangian ground troops landed. Towering aliens in living armor marched through streets, expecting easy victory against primitive humans. Instead, they encountered something that hadn't existed on Earth just days before: humans, wielding forces that bent reality itself. In Vancouver, construction workers found they could harden air into barriers strong enough to stop alien weapons. In Cairo, hospital staff discovered they could use the ether to heal injuries at impossible speeds. And in Seoul, Haiwan led a group of 20 volunteers, ordinary citizens with particularly strong ether connections, in a direct counterattack against a Varangian command post. Witnesses described seeing the aliens' weapons and armor simply fail as the humans approached, the living metal becoming inert in the presence of concentrated ether energy. This changes everything, Sungmin said late that night, watching the latest battle reports. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're becoming something new. Jiwoo nodded, thinking of all the scientific principles they'd broken in the past week alone. The Varangians thought they were invading the same Earth they'd been observing, she said quietly. They had no idea what we would become when pushed. Outside, the night sky glowed with faint blue-green light as more humans awakened to the ether around them. Learning in hours what might have taken years of scientific study, humanity was changing, adapting to use a power that had always been there, waiting to be discovered. And high above, the Varangian ships began to retreat from Earth's atmosphere for the first time since their arrival, leaving behind confused ground. Forces suddenly cut off from their command. The awakening had begun. Hull integrity at 97%, the ship's AI announced, its voice eerily calm amid the chaos. Ether core stable. Captain Do-hyun Choi gripped the edge of his command chair as the prototype vessel Prometheus shuddered around him. Through the viewscreen, he watched the Varangian cruiser grow larger, its weapons ports glowing with deadly energy. They're charging main cannons, his tactical officer, Jinna, reported. Her hands moved steadily across her console despite the tension in her voice. Impact in 5 seconds. Do-hyun took a deep breath. Engage ether shield, the air around. The Prometheus rippled as the shield activated. Not a conventional energy barrier, but a localized distortion in reality itself. The Varangian weapons fire struck the shield and simply vanished as if it had never existed. It worked, whispered Jiwoo from her station. The scientist who had discovered the ether now served as the ship's technical advisor. They can't touch us. 6 weeks had passed since Earth's first successful defense against the Varangian invasion. While the aliens had withdrawn their main fleet from Earth's atmosphere, they had merely regrouped. Now they were systematically attacking human colonies and outposts throughout the solar system. The Prometheus represented humanity's answer, a ship powered entirely by ether technology, capable of feats that defied conventional physics. It could phase through solid matter, travel faster than light without traditional drives, and generate shields that existed partially outside normal space-time. We're being hailed, Jinna announced. The Varangian commander wants to speak. Do-hyun nodded. On screen, the alien's face appeared, all 4 eyes narrowed in what humans had learned to recognize as confusion or frustration. Human vessel, the commander said, mandibles clicking between words. Your technology is stolen. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. No technology was stolen, Do-hyun replied evenly. The ether responds to human consciousness in ways it doesn't for your kind. That's not theft, it's compatibility. The alien commander hissed something in his native language before switching back to human speech. Then you will be the first to witness the full might of the Varangian Empire. No primitive species defies us. The transmission cut off. Moments later, 3 more Varangian cruisers emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Prometheus. We're outnumbered, Jinna said, checking her tactical display. Do-hyun smiled slightly. But not outmatched. Prepare for phase jump. What happened next would later be described in the official report as reality bending, though the crew had a simpler term for it: ghost walking. The Prometheus seemed to fade partially from existence, becoming translucent as it accelerated directly toward the largest Varangian ship. Holding phase stability at 60%, Jiwoo called out, monitoring the ether core. We'll pass right through them. Unlike conventional vessels that had to navigate around obstacles, the Prometheus could partially shift into the ether dimension, allowing it to pass through solid matter as if it weren't there. The Varangians fired desperately, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the semi-phased ship. As they emerged from the other side of the Varangian cruiser, Do-hyun gave his next order. Deploy ether missiles. These weren't traditional explosives, but concentrated packets of ether energy that, when released, created temporary tears in the fabric of spacetime. The missiles passed through the Varangian ship's hull like ghosts, then detonated inside. The effect was catastrophic for the aliens. Their ship didn't explode. Instead, sections of it simply ceased to exist in normal space, creating impossible geometries of twisted metal and exposed corridors. The vessel hung dead in space, its systems completely fried by direct exposure to raw ether energy. Back on Earth, Sungmin Lee watched the battle through the Prometheus's transmitted feed. Around him, the war room of the newly formed Earth Defense Force buzzed with activity as analysts tracked Varangian movements throughout the solar system. The Prometheus is performing beyond expectations, reported his chief strategist Hae-jin. Do-hyun reports all systems functioning at optimal levels. Sung-min nodded, but his eyes were on a different screen, one showing the latest reports from human colonies on Mars and Europa. The Varangians had already destroyed 2 outposts, killing hundreds of civilians. The Prometheus is just one ship, he said heavily. We need an entire fleet. We're working on it, Hae-jin replied. The shipyards in orbit around the moon have adapted quickly. 5 more ether core vessels will be ready within the month. That may not be soon enough. Sungmin pulled up a new holographic display showing the positions of Varangian forces. Our intelligence suggests they're bringing in reinforcements from other star systems. They're not used to being challenged. Back in space, the Prometheus continued its mission, engaging 3 more Varangian vessels before jumping to light speed. As the stars streaked past the view screen, Jiwoo left her station to join Do-hyun at the command chair. We should consider using the phase drive to push deeper into their territory, she suggested. From what we've seen, they have no effective countermeasures against ether technology. Do-hyun looked thoughtful. You're suggesting we take the fight to them, beyond our solar system? The best defense is a strong offense, Jiwoo replied. And honestly, I'm curious to see how the Galactic Council is reacting to all this. They dismissed my research, told us humans weren't ready for advanced concepts. Do-hyun smiled grimly. I imagine they're feeling rather foolish right now. He wasn't wrong. Across the galaxy, news of human resistance had spread rapidly. The Galactic Council, which had written off Earth as just another world destined to fall to the Varangians, was holding emergency sessions. Video feeds smuggled out by sympathetic aliens showed council representatives arguing heatedly about the human problem. They've accessed the ether dimension, a Moralian representative was shown shouting, mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. A dimension we theorized but never managed to access. How is this possible? The answer, of course, was one that no advanced species wanted to hear, that they had fundamentally misunderstood what forms power could take, and that the species they dismissed as primitive had accessed something beyond their comprehension. As the Prometheus prepared to jump back into battle, Do-hyun addressed his crew over the ship's communication system. Today we've proven that humanity won't be conquered, he said, his voice steady and determined. But our mission is far from over. The Varangians have never signed a peace treaty with any species. We're about to make history by becoming the first. Gina looked up from her console. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. Director Sungmin has given authorization for Operation Lightbringer. Do-hyun nodded, his expression grave but resolved. Then set course for the Varangian command carrier. It's time they learned that humanity isn't just fighting for survival. We're fighting for our place among the stars. As the Prometheus vanished into faster-than-light travel, observers throughout the solar system reported seeing a brief flash of blue-green light, the signature of an ether jump that defied conventional physics. Humanity's counterattack had begun in earnest. The grand hall of the newly constructed Earth Diplomatic Center buzzed with voices speaking dozens of languages, both human and alien. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching the subtle blue-green shimmer that now permanently surrounded Earth, a visible manifestation of the ether field that had become humanity's signature. Ji-Woo Kim stood by the windows, watching ships arrive in the distance. 5 years had passed since the end of the Varangian War, yet sometimes she still found herself startled by how quickly everything had changed. The simple research scientist who had discovered an anomalous energy field was now Earth's most respected scientific mind and a key diplomatic figure. Thinking about the old days, a familiar voice broke her reverie. Ji-Woo turned to see Hyejin Kang approaching, dressed in the formal blue robes that marked her as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Assembly. The former linguistics professor had proven remarkably skilled at navigating the complex currents of interstellar politics. Just remembering how it all started, Ji-Woo replied with a small smile. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if the Galactic Council had taken my research seriously from the beginning. Hyejin laughed softly. Then we'd be just another protected species, dependent on alien technology. I prefer the way things turned out. Around them, delegates from 27 alien civilizations mingled with human representatives. Some species they had known before the war, members of the original Galactic Council. Others were newcomers drawn to Earth by rumors of the mysterious ether technology that had defeated the previously unconquerable Varangian Empire. The Moralian ambassador keeps asking for another demonstration of the personal ether shields, Hyejin said, nodding toward the insectoid diplomat surrounded by curious aides. I think he still can't believe something so powerful can be controlled by individual humans. It's not about power, Ji-Woo replied, touching the small device at her wrist that regulated her personal connection to the ether. It's about compatibility. Our neural patterns just happen to resonate with the ether dimension in ways their biology doesn't. A soft chime echoed through the hall, signaling the beginning of the formal ceremony. Ji-Woo and Hyejin made their way to the central platform where Earth's delegation would officially welcome their interstellar guests. At the center of the platform stood Director Sungmin Lee, now serving as Earth's security coordinator. Beside him, Captain Do-Hyun Choi, now Admiral Choi, stood in formal uniform, his chest bearing the simple golden emblem that marked veterans of the Prometheus mission. Ready? Sungmin asked as Ji-Woo and Hyejin took their places. Ji-Woo nodded, taking a deep breath. 5 years ago, she could never have imagined standing here representing humanity to the galaxy. Her hand still trembled slightly at the memory of those desperate days when the survival of their species had hinged on untested theories about an energy field most aliens had dismissed as useless. The ceremony began with a speech from Hyejin, outlining the new trade agreements between Earth and the reformed Galactic Assembly. What had once been the Galactic Council, dominated by a few advanced species, had been reorganized after the Varangian defeat, with Earth playing a central role in its new structure. The peace treaty signed aboard the Prometheus marked more than the end of the Varangian threat, Hyejin said, her voice carrying easily through the hall. It marked the beginning of a new understanding among all our civilizations, that true advancement comes not from technological superiority alone, but from diversity of approach and thought. Ji-Woo watched the alien delegates as Hyejin spoke. The Moralians nodded their segmented heads in agreement. The gelatinous Vex pulsed with colors indicating respect. Most surprising were the 3 Varangian representatives standing stiffly at the back of the hall, the first diplomatic mission they had ever sent to any world. After the formal speeches, the gathering broke into smaller discussions. Ji-Woo found herself approached by a young Taraxi scientist, silver skin gleaming under the lights. Dr. Kim, the alien said, bowing slightly in the human fashion. Your paper on ether-enhanced medical applications has revolutionized our approach to cellular regeneration. My people would like to establish a joint research facility. We'd be honored, Jiwoo replied. Though I should mention that while we can teach the theory, practical applications still require human neural patterns to activate. We've been working on an interface that might bridge that gap, the Taraxi said eagerly. Not as efficient as direct human control, of course, but a start. This was how it had been for 5 years now. Species that had once looked down on humanity as primitive now sought their knowledge and partnership. Earth had become the center of scientific advancement in the galaxy, not because humans were inherently smarter, but because they had access to a dimension of reality that other species could only study theoretically. Later that evening, after most of the delegates had departed, Jiwoo joined her old friends on the observation deck overlooking the city. Donghyun, Yoonha, and several others from the original research team had gathered to mark the anniversary in private. Remember when we were just trying to convince the council that our readings weren't equipment malfunctions? Yoonha laughed, raising her glass in a toast. Remember when you brought that tiny prototype to the first Varangian meeting? Taeho added, now serving as Heejin's chief advisor. I thought we were all going to die. Jiwoo smiled, but her mind was on the future rather than the past. The Aether technology has given us so much, but I can't help wondering what else we'll discover. We've barely scratched the surface of what's possible. That's what terrifies some of the older species, Donghyun noted. The Moralian representative was asking me how we plan to prevent Aether weapons proliferation. I told him the truth. We can't give away what's inherently part of us. Outside the windows, the night sky of Earth looked different than it had 5 years earlier. Space traffic moved in regulated patterns, ships from a dozen worlds conducting commerce that had made Earth wealthy beyond imagination. The blue-green shimmer of the Aether field gave the stars a dreamy quality, as if they were being viewed through rippling water. You know what I realized today? Jiwoo said, looking out at the transformed world. We've become what every species eventually hopes to be, not just survivors but contributors. We've changed the course of galactic history not by conquering or dominating, but by offering something new. Admiral Choi raised his glass. To humanity's place among the stars. As the others echoed the toast, Jiwoo thought about how far they had come, from a research station where her discoveries were dismissed, to a world at the center of galactic politics and science. The Aether had always been there, waiting for minds that could recognize and shape it. The Varangians have a saying, Taeho mentioned, joining Jiwoo by the window. They believe power is the only true constant in the universe. They weren't entirely wrong, Jiwoo replied. They just underestimated what power could be. Outside, a ship lifted off, its Aether drive creating a beautiful spiral of blue-green light as it accelerated toward the stars. Not as conquerors or supplicants, but as equals, humanity had found its place in the cosmos.